So I'm going to record from now on the session. Sorry about that. And so you have the video, you have the forum, but notice this too, okay? 5 quotations are due, plus comments are due next week. When? It says in there, right? I want to go to the assignment. You have the description of the assignment right here. Quote, short segments from Rodriguez, and you can read it, right? And then make a comment on your quotations. Try to have at least 3 ideas in that quotation. It must not be longer than 5 lines, more or less. I have details as to single space, double space, depending. First set, Monday, November 2nd. Second set, Monday, November 16th. A total of 10 quotations plus 10 comments. I would like to ask you to write at least 300 words for your comments. So it's a little short essay on your quotation. No longer than 300 words, okay? But that would be, more significant for me. In case you can, I would like for you to contribute in that way. And then more. So you already have here a place where you can submit your quotations. And so what we are doing today, as you can see, this conversation about what he's writing, this conversation about the ideas, his ideas, and his language, the language he's using, is precisely what I would like you to do in your quotations, for your quotations. It's exactly the same, only that we are not writing it, right? We're just talking about it. But this is what I would like you to do. I intend you to do. Okay, after having said that, we have, do you have any questions?
Does it matter which chapters we use?
Yes, indeed, it does matter. You can only use the chapters that we have discussed. So the prologue is 1, and then Aria is 1. Do not include quotations from any chapter that we have not used or discussed in class, because I'm trying to help you by giving you more or less explanation, detailed explanations on a specific segment. So I'm trying to guide you, okay? Guide you through the book. Please do not quote from chapters we have not yet discussed in class. Yes, that's a requirement. Good question.
So we're not doing chapter 2 as well, because we're gonna have to read it for Tuesday.
No, that's just for reading.
All right.
That is just for reading. Yeah, notice I'm just giving you 5 quotations, 5 comments. You can do it. You'll have enough, enough material to do that. Okay, I think we have, let me see. I just want to make sure that we have time. Yes, I think we do. Okay, there's something important. Richard Rodriguez is gay, okay? But if you read the book, you will never find out. You will never know, because he did not state that he was gay as he was in any segment of this book. In later books, like in Brown or Darling, he has essays in which he refers to the many friends he lost to AIDS, okay? And the significance of that moment for him. So I always wonder myself, why he didn't say anything. Also, what was his relationship to his family as he was growing up? There's nothing, he says, nothing said in this book about that. But that's an important, part of his life. As he declares later on, he knew he was gay from early on. He knew he was, a different child regarding his surrounding, his family. So I kept wondering, so why is he not writing about that? And could he write about that, and in which fashion he would write about that? So there must be plenty of reasons, okay, for that. But nowadays, since he's published 4 important books and many articles, the community knows, okay? The community knows that he's part of this Chicano movement somehow, the Mexican-American movement of the 60s, civil rights. And he's unique in the way that he's very prominent, and also, saying, I am queer. That's what he says in one interview. He doesn't say, I'm gay. He says, I consider myself to be queer. He uses the word, okay? I'm trying to be respectful to the way he presents himself. So to this class, I decided, okay, I'm not going to erase that from the conversation. So I'm going to show you a video in which he talks about it, okay? So that we get to know him. This is from 2014.
Airport story. Let me finish it. This woman who thought I was Richard Ramirez had remembered an essay that I wrote on AIDS and architecture. And that was for 2 years before she was remembering this. And I realized that she had finished the essay and she remembered how the essay worked. You understand what I'm saying? She remembered how A led to B led to C, that an essay is not simply an opinion. Are you for it or against it? An essay is the process of thinking. That's what essays teach us, how to respond to our experience. Charlie Rose says, do you think of yourself as a gay writer? And I said, no, I think of myself as a morose writer. And it is true. I have never quite understood this little gay flag that I'm supposed to be waving. My gayness. If I think of my friends who died in my arms with AIDS, I don't think any of us were gay. It was something else altogether. I feel rather like a character in an Edwardian novel who's survived the war, walking down Piccadilly and hearing the noise of the streets, but has left something behind. Anyway, I call this book Darling because it's not about being gay, it's about women. One of the things about my childhood that was interesting to me at a quite early age was my friendship with little girls. How many girls I knew, how I would sit with them in school and gossip and laugh, and how after a while, how embarrassing that was, that a boy who hung around girls was a sissy. But I loved girls and I love women now. The darling in this book is a woman who died a few years ago of cancer. It takes place in Malibu on a day in which her divorce was finalized. And we were at a restaurant and overlooking the ocean. And it begins as a discussion of that very word, darling, the insincerity of it, the gayness of it. The interior decorator saying to you, darling, I think we've done a little bit too much beige, don't you? Maybe we should do the bedroom in green, emerald green, something like that, just for a while. Or the beautician saying, you know, darling, this summer, let's do a shorter haircut, huh? You look so good in short hair. There are a lot of people who come through this book. Cary Grant is one of them, because I was standing in front of the Current Theater as a young boy going to see How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And Cary Grant got out of his limousine with Diane Cannon, a woman he was about briefly to marry. And he put her in his arms and said, darling. And then got back in the car and rolled down the window. I'll see you later, darling, he says. Well, that word recurs, and part of the problem I have at this lunch at the beginning is that when I come to the lunch, I start referring to darling as darling, and she's pissed off. She wants a man to talk to. She doesn't want an interior decorator to talk to. We get beyond that. And I propose in this book that the real revolution going on right now in the world has to do with women, has to do with a little girl getting her head shot in Pakistan on her way to school, has to do with American girls on college campuses being raped, has to do with peasant women in India who have been assaulted by their entire village and then left to hang, has to do with upper middle class women in Riyadh today, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, who in protest are getting into their automobiles and driving, knowing that they will be arrested because they are not in the company of men, and will be arrested, politely treated, sent back to the police station until a man comes to drive them home. Something is going on that is so large in this world right now that I cannot imagine my liberation as a homosexual man without thinking about women and what women are doing and why it is possible, even in this time of my liberation, why it is possible for gays to be married, but women's reproductive rights are still nowhere near the public support that gay marriage has.
I'm just going to leave it there. I don't know if you have any comments, but I thought the word liberation was very important. I tend to forget that word, so I thought that was a very well-used word in the speech.
I gotta say, I really like this guy.
He's so charming.
Yeah, he really is. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's really likable. And in addition, he's got a great sense of humor. If you watch a video, one of his lectures, he's been constantly invited to talk to students and people. He's hilarious. So, yes, and that personality doesn't come through, right? Come across through the book. It's not the same. So you need
I can see why, though. He wants to get his point across. He doesn't want to bring humor into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's not much humor here, actually, throughout the book. And precisely because he wants to make a good number of points and describe his situation in terms of his education. But, okay, so the page was 26, and again, it was about bilingual education, right? Today I hear bilingual educators say that children lose a degree of individuality by becoming assimilated into public society. Bilingual schooling was popularized in the 70s, the decade when middle-class ethnics, notice how he says it, middle-class ethnics, that is to say, not necessarily those I was part of. And when he says ethnics, for me, he's talking about both, perhaps Mexican Americans or Latinx people, along with maybe African American people from a middle class background, not from a working class background. He will insist over and over and over on his point about class status, class, social class. Decade when middle-class ethnics began to resist the process of assimilation, the American melting pot. I need to make a comment here. I don't know if we any longer accept or take for granted this metaphor, melting pot, because we have a different, there's one more metaphor, right, for integration into America. Could somebody refer to the second? So we have melting pot, used to be, and then people were using salad. Nobody has heard about it? Salad bowl. The melting pot. Okay, the melting pot implies fusion. assimilation. You go into
You mean
America
you
and
mean
you,
like the combining of cultures, you mean?
right, exactly. It's a metaphor
Oh,
for that.
okay.
So we have different, vegetables, colors, flavors, texture, and therefore you don't get lost. This is the multicultural approach version of the metaphor, the salad bowl, as opposed to the melting pot pot that he's associating with assimilation, melting pot. So notice how he goes about assimilation. But bilingualists, excuse me, simplistically scorn the value and the necessity of assimilation. So what is he saying? You must assimilate. You must assimilate. Uh, they do not seem to realize that there are two ways a person is individualized. And this is what I highlighted myself. So they do not realize that while one suffers a diminished sense of private individuality by becoming assimilated into public society, that is to say, yes, the more you become part of the spectrum of people who speak English, and the more you will shed that previous private skin, if you will, and will become Americanized. There is no way you can do it otherwise. He's arguing, you need to shed that skin and become someone else, who the assimilated person into that mainstream America, who's monolingual, by the way, who's monolingual. Okay, although he will say, I'm not pushing the monolingual agenda here. My approach is more complex than that, but that's what I'm seeing right here. We need to assimilate into public society. Who? Not everybody. I'm not talking about the middle class white kid. Perhaps I'm not talking about the middle class African American kid. I'm talking about the kid who was born in a household from working class immigrant Mexican parents. That kid needs to shape a public persona for himself in this case. And unless he assimilates, unless he is taught in English, he will not attain full citizenship of the United States of America. Okay, that's why on page 27, if you go to page 27 now, the one that begins, the bilingualist insists that the students should be reminded of his difference. So according to him, if you push for bilingualism, you will keep people feeling different from the majority or from whomever. So for him, no, people should not feel in any way different. People should feel like totally an equal. Okay, I think he's going for equal. I'm trying to be respectful of his viewpoint right here. Okay, feel yourself like anybody else. Become like anybody else in the States, so that you can have a conversation with Lindsay, with Kaylee, with Kels, with Jorge as an equal. Okay, as an equal through education. Okay, and he says, only when I was able to think of myself as an American, no longer an alien in gringo society, could I seek the rights and opportunities necessary for full public individuality. So what is he saying about his own challenge? He felt like an alien in gringo society. Why? Because of his background, because he spoke only, Spanish entering elementary school. We're talking about elementary school, by the way. We're not even talking about high school, because he becomes highly proficient in the English language. And he forgets the Spanish, right? Maybe bits and parts are here, some Spanish he had. But I felt alienated from my classmates, from my peers, from my neighbors. Okay. Yes, I felt the comfort of home, and Spanish was comforting to him and to his family, but he's saying we were foolish, fooling ourselves in believing that that would be enough. No, that wasn't enough, okay? But notice how he's describing a process from which he goes Spanish, home, elementary school, Catholic school, private school, nuns teaching him, as he will say, English only. 1 year, paying attention to him, to his situation, teaching him the basics of English. And we can make more comments, but we don't have time. But I want you to understand what he's basically describing, okay? As his own journey into America and into becoming an American citizen and so on and so forth. I'll see you next class. Thanks for your patience and stay cool and safe.
Have a good
Have a
weekend,
good one.
Professor.
You too. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Oh my God. I'm my cat.
I
I'm
love,
so sorry.
I love your cat. Don't worry.